Some weapons are made of steel. Some are made of time. She had been both. For 30 years, they tried to make her disappear. Not with a bullet, not with a court order, with something slower and crueler than either. Paperwork, silence, the quiet administrative erosion of a person they couldn't afford to acknowledge and couldn't figure out how to stop. They suspended her access, stripped her support, removed her name from every document that mattered. And still, she showed up. 6:47 in the morning, pale blue shirt, a rifle that hadn't been serviced in 9 months, hands moving with the certainty of someone who has never once confused paperwork with reality. Because somewhere out there a target was moving, and somewhere in this building a colonel was counting on her to finally be gone. They were both about to find out what 30 years of being underestimated actually builds in a person. Not bitterness, not defeat. Something far more dangerous than either. Stillness. The clock on the wall read 6:47. Not that Marcus Calloway was looking at the clock, he was looking at the hands. Specifically the hands of a woman who had absolutely no business being inside room 14C of the Naval Special Warfare Command facility at Dam Neck, Virginia. Hands moving with a precision that made his chest tighten in a way he couldn't immediately name. Not threat response tight. Something else. Something closer to watching a surgeon work. The recognition of a person doing the exact thing they were built to do. She was disassembling a Barrett M107.50 caliber rifle. From memory, without a manual, without gloves, without any concern whatsoever that a Navy SEAL commander was standing 4 feet behind her, Calloway had been heading to the equipment review room on the East Corridor when movement caught his peripheral vision through the reinforced glass panel. He stopped walking, the way you stop when your brain processes something before your conscious mind catches up. Feet just stopped. He stood for 3 full seconds before he trusted what he was seeing. A woman, civilian clothes, a pale blue button-down shirt, dark slacks, flat shoes, hair silver white and cut close the way women cut their hair when they have decided they have more important things to think about than hair. She stood slightly off-center. Left hip dropped a few degrees lower than her right, a compensating lean so practiced it had become posture. And she was working on one of the most restricted weapons in the military's precision fires inventory. The way other people made coffee in the morning, automatic, unhurried, utterly at home. Calloway entered the room. His footsteps on the concrete floor projected presence, weight forward, each step deliberate. The approach that made sailors straighten without being told to. She didn't straighten, didn't acknowledge him at all. He watched her lift the barrel from the receiver with the 2 fingers and 1 thumb rotated 45 degrees, set it on the cleaning mat with the careful neutrality of someone placing a sleeping child in a crib. "Ma'am." "Nothing." "Ma'am, this is a restricted area." She picked up a bore brush. He crossed the remaining distance in 4 steps, close enough that she would have to actively work to avoid his presence. She did not avoid it. She selected a cleaning rod and began working the barrel. "You are not authorized to handle that equipment." She said, "I know." Just that. Quiet, conversational. Like he'd pointed out she'd left her coffee on the wrong burner. Calloway stood there and felt the ground shift approximately 2 inches beneath his feet. In 15 years of operational service, 3 theaters, 2 combat deployments, more classified briefings than he could count. He had never encountered a person who responded to unauthorized access to a classified weapons system with the words, "I know," and then continued. His brain offered options. Option 1, confusion, dementia. She'd wandered in from somewhere. He watched the bore brush moving through the barrel with textbook perfect technique and discarded that. Option 2, hostile infiltrator. He studied her pulse visible at the side of her throat somewhere in the low 60s. No micro tremors, no elevated movement rate, no tells whatsoever. Discarded that too. Option 3 was the one he didn't want to think about yet. Step away from the weapon. "The firing pin assembly is currently in 3 pieces on this mat," she said. "If I step away now, I'll lose the spring tension calibration I've been building toward for 6 minutes. So I'd rather not." Calloway opened his mouth, closed it. "I need you to identify yourself." "Of course you do." She set the bore brush down, picked up a chamber swab. "My name today is Elena Voss, Civilian Optics Contractor Badge number 771-Delta, contracted through Brennan Technical Services, Alexandria. Check the visitor log for the last 3 years and you'll find I've been in and out of this facility approximately 40 times. His radio was half raised. He stopped. 40 times. "But you won't find my name on the access log for this room," she continued. Because I was never supposed to need this room. I was supposed to have a support team. The swab reached the end of the chamber. I don't have a support teams anymore. He crossed the room in 6 steps, reached the wall panel, engaged the electronic lock. The magnetic bolt seated with a solid thunk he felt in his back teeth. Nobody in, nobody out. He turned. She had not reacted to the sound of the lock, had not tensed, had not shifted her weight. She simply continued working. And for one suspended moment, the only sound in room 14C was the soft drag of the cleaning swab and the distant hum of the HVAC system. And Calloway had the disorienting sensation that he was the one who had entered someone else's space. How did you access this room? The same way I access most restricted spaces. She lifted the swab into the light, examined it, set it aside. Carefully. That's not an answer. It's the most accurate one I can give without a security clearance verification process that would take longer than I have. She glanced up. Brown eyes, almost black. The kind of eyes that have looked at a great many things for a very long time and stopped being surprised by most of them. You're Commander Calloway. He went still. Marcus Calloway. Dam Neck 14 months. Prior assignment DevGru. Before that, Team 6 rotations out of Little Creek. Ramadi 2006. Silver Star. She returned to the cleaning mat. You told 3 different people you didn't think you deserved it. For what it's worth, I read the action report. You deserved it. The room temperature did not actually drop. It felt like it did. How do you know my name? The same way I know the M107 in front of me hasn't been properly serviced in 9 months. She picked up the barrel, held it to the light, rotated it slowly. Through careful attention to things other people have decided not to pay attention to. 9 months. The maintenance log shows what someone wanted it to show. She set the barrel down, looked at him directly, did not look away. Commander Calloway, there is a restricted access system in this facility called Vault Access Kilo 9. I need you to log in. Why would I do that? Because the access code is Charlie 7 November 44 Whiskey. A beat. And the passphrase is the name of your grandmother's dog and the year you passed BUD/S. The sound Calloway made was not a word. It was the sound a person makes when something they were certain was impossible briefly stops being impossible and their respiratory system hasn't caught up yet. The passphrase for Vault Kilo 9 had been generated by him personally from information in no database, no file, no psychological screening record. Abigail, his grandmother's arthritic golden retriever, the year he nearly quit 3 times and didn't. Known to him, his grandmother dead 11 years. And apparently to this woman in a department store blouse, reassembling a .50 caliber precision rifle from memory in a room she had no clearance to enter. He walked to the terminal, typed the code. The system accepted it without hesitation and opened a file he had never seen. Voss Elena Miram, most precision fire specialist augmented clearance, AP/compartmented operational status, administratively suspended. Authorizing officer Decker Raymond T. Cole, date of suspension 14 months ago, confirmed engagements classified level 5. Access required maximum recorded engagement distance, 2,960 meters. Equipment assigned Barrett M107A1. Serial redacted notes, suspension pending review. Review date not scheduled. Calloway read it once, read it again, read the number 2,960 meters and felt something in his professional understanding of what human beings were physically capable of quietly rearrange itself. The longest confirmed sniper engagement in documented U.S. military history was just under 2,100 meters. Every precision fires professional in the building knew that number. 2,960 was not in the same county as 2,100. He turned from the terminal. She had completed reassembly of the upper receiver and was beginning on the lower, moving with the same unhurried precision from the first moment he'd seen her. Administratively suspended, he said, 14 months ago. By Colonel Decker. Yes. Why? She didn't answer immediately. Hands kept moving, the buffer tube, the stock. Each component seated with a small, definitive click. He had the impression she was deciding not what to tell him, but how much. Not yet, she said. First, you need to understand what you're looking at. What he was looking at, she explained without theatrics, in the measured cadence of a technical briefing, was a weapon that had not been serviced in 9 months because the service had been bureaucratically blocked. Not forgotten, not lost in paperwork. Blocked. There was a difference. The difference mattered because the weapon was needed, not in the abstract institutional sense. in the specific immediate 40 hours from now since. There's a mission, Calloway said. There's a mission, she confirmed. You're on it. I have always been on it. She set down the lower receiver. I was removed from the support infrastructure 14 months ago. No team, no maintenance schedule, no logistics chain, which means I am here alone at 6:47 on a Tuesday morning, servicing my own equipment before deployment that officially does not have my name attached to it. And the mission parameters, above your current access level. Not unkindly, but I can tell you the outcome affects people who are not soldiers, and I am the only person currently positioned to achieve it. Said the way people say things that are simply true. No pride, no apology, just the flat declarative reality of the situation. The baton on his belt crackled. Specialist Reeves's voice, Commander Calloway, are you in the 14C corridor? We're showing the maintenance bay locked from inside. Calloway looked at the door, looked at Elena. She was watching him with those dark, patient eyes. Not nervous, not pleading, just waiting. How long do you need? 2 hours, maybe less. I have about 4 minutes before Reeves comes back with his supervisor key. Then, she picked up the bolt carrier group, began her inspection. I suggest you answer her quickly and make it convincing. He keyed his radio, covered the time, bought the space, then turned back to a woman examining a firing pin with the focused attention of a jeweler assessing a diamond. You were military, he said. Army. How long? I enlisted in 1980. She set the firing pin down, picked up a magnifying loupe. I've been in various operational capacities ever since. The math hit him. 1980, 44 years in and around military service. He was 46 years old. She had been doing this his entire life, and then some. Panama, he said, 1989. Her hands stopped. Not dramatically. Not with a flinch. A half-second suspension, the way a clock hesitates at the top of a pendulum swing. Then she put the loupe down and looked at him. Operation Just Cause, December 20th, support position for an extraction team outside Panama City. Structural collapse during a firefight. Concrete and rebar. A small pause. The medical team told me I'd require a wheelchair by the time I was 50. He waited. I'm 62, she said. Same words, same tone. But now he heard what lived underneath them. Not defiance, not pride. Something quieter and more durable than either. Adaptation. The leg, he said. Does it affect my position behind the trigger? The faintest suggestion of something not quite a smile. No, the leg doesn't matter behind the trigger. She turned back to her work. Something Colonel Decker apparently forgot to account for when he decided I was operationally compromised. The name sat between them. Decker. Colonel Raymond Decker. Base commander. Dam Neck facility. Calloway had sat across conference tables from the man. Found him thorough, methodical, not particularly warm. Competent the way a machine is competent, reliable within predictable parameters. The kind of officer who did not make obvious mistakes. He suspended you, Calloway said. He suspended my program access, my logistics support, my equipment maintenance authorization, my communications channels. She paused over the bolt carrier group. He could not formally terminate my commission. He doesn't have the authority. What he could do was remove every structural support until the position became untenable. The theory was I would eventually leave. And you didn't. I have a rifle that needs servicing before 1,500 hours. She picked up the bolt, rotated it slowly under the overhead light. I went around the obstacles. Why after 14 months? Why not just... Because the mission exists whether I'm officially on it or not. She set the bolt down. And because there are people who will not come home if someone doesn't take this shot. And I am the person who can take it. No boast in it, just accuracy. His radio crackled again. Different frequency. Internal building circuit. Commander Calloway, Colonel Decker's voice, flat and precise as a ruled line. I'm showing you in the 14C maintenance bay. I'll be there in approximately 3 minutes. Please ensure the room is accessible. 1 second of silence. Calloway looked at Elena Voss. Elena Voss looked at Marcus Calloway. Neither said anything, because everything that needed to be said had been said. What remained was not words. Decision. Her hands rested on either side of the Barrett's upper receiver. Steady, unshaking. The hands of someone who has aimed at things 2,960 meters away and trusted the stillness in her own body to close the distance. Your call, Commander. Not a plea, not a manipulation, just a fact. He looked at the terminal one last time. Operational status administratively suspended. Review date not scheduled. Review date not scheduled, which meant no one had ever intended to review it, which meant someone had intended for this woman to simply disappear from the record slowly, the way things disappear when you stop maintaining them. He pressed the intercom button. Colonel Decker, this is Calloway. I'm in the middle of a classified inventory verification and I need another 20 minutes. I'd ask you to give me that time, sir. A pause. 20 minutes, Commander? Then I expect that room open. The intercom clicked off. Calloway turned. Elena Voss had already picked up the Barrett's upper receiver and was beginning final assembly. She did not say thank you. She didn't need to. Some silences are receipts, acknowledgement that a transaction has occurred, that something of weight has passed between two people and been accepted and will not be forgotten. This was one of those silences. Calloway pulled a stool from the adjacent workbench, sat down, and watched. She started with the date, October 3rd, 1993. Not because dates matter in themselves, but because that particular date belongs to a specific category of American history, the kind that doesn't need context for anyone who is paying attention, the kind that lodged in the national memory like a splinter that never fully worked its way out. Calloway knew the date. Every person in uniform knew the date. I wasn't in the city, Elena said. Her hands were still now, cleaning kit closed. Barrett assembled and resting on the mat between them like a third presence in the room. I was 3 kilometers northeast, elevated position, support role for an extraction team working the Baccarat market perimeter. She said it the way veterans say things, flat geography, flat timeline, all the feeling pressed down under the weight of precision, because precision is what keeps you functional when the thing you're describing would at full volume make it very difficult to continue standing upright. My spotter was a kid named Kowalski, 22, from Baton Rouge. Talked about his mother's cooking every night for 6 weeks. A pause, not emotional, just accurate. He was good, better than people knew. Calloway said nothing, which was the right thing to do. The mission that night had 3 components, 2 running as planned. The third, Elena's support arc covering a corridor through which the extraction team might need to withdraw, had developed a complication. Intelligence had flagged a building. 4 stories, concrete, east-facing windows on the 3rd floor overlooking the withdrawal road. The assessment possible hostile sniper placement. The order which came through her radio at 21:14 local time was to neutralize the threat. The order came from Captain Raymond Decker. He had the authority, Elena said. That's important. I want to be clear. He had the authority to issue that order. The intelligence assessment was legitimate. The threat profile was real. But, Calloway said, but I had eyes on the building. 3 words. And somehow those 3 words I had eyes contained everything. The weight of what it means to be the person behind the scope, for whom a building is not a symbol on a map or a coordinate on a grid, but a specific set of windows in a specific quality of light at a specific moment in time. 3rd floor, east face, middle window. Her voice still level, still precise. There was movement. I called it out to Kowalski. He confirmed. And what we saw, she stopped, started again. What we saw was not a firing position being prepared. Her jaw tightened, just slightly. There were people inside that building who were not combatants. Families, taking cover. A beat. The way people take cover when a city is turning into a combat zone around them and they don't have anywhere else to go. You didn't take the shot, Calloway said. I told Kowalski to confirm what he was seeing. He confirmed. I got on the radio and reported to Decker that I was unable to execute the order as given based on revised visual assessment of the target. What did he say? He said I was compromising the extraction. He said the intelligence was solid. He said I had my orders. Her voice didn't change. I told him I needed 5 minutes to reconfirm. He told me I had 2. I used 4. And by time, I did not fire. The room was very quiet. Outside in the facility's ventilation system, a fan cycled on and added a low mechanical hum to the silence. Neither of them moved. 4 minutes later, Elena said, the extraction team found an alternate withdrawal route. They got out. Nobody died in that corridor. She paused. In 41 minutes after that, a joint assessment confirmed that the building I had been ordered to fire on contained 11 civilians taking shelter. 11. Calloway thought about that number. What 11 people look like through a scope at night. What it would have meant if she had trusted the intelligence over her own eyes. 11 people who went home that night, who never knew there had been a woman 3 kilometers away, looking at them through a rifle scope and deciding in the space of 4 minutes not to pull a trigger. He thought about what that decision had cost her. Decker filed the report, she said. insubordination during active operation, refusal of lawful order under fire. She didn't look away from the middle distance. He was technically not wrong. I did refuse an order. The order was lawful. The fact that following it would have killed 11 people doesn't change the legal classification. That's correct, yes. A small, dry acknowledgement, not quite a laugh. The sound of a person who has thought about something so many times they've worn all the outrage off it, and what's left is just the shape. The system doesn't have a category for right decision, wrong protocol. It has very neat boxes, and I didn't fit in any of them. So he used it. Not immediately. He was too smart for that. A formal charge would have required a proceeding, witnesses. Kowalski would have testified. The timing of the assessment confirmation would have been on record. She shifted slightly, recrossed her hands on the workbench. What he did was quieter. A notation here, a reassignment there, a performance evaluation that was technically positive but contained language that closes doors without ever explicitly saying why. Calloway knew that language. He had seen it in files. The professional vocabulary of institutional burial. Words like occasionally demonstrates independent assessment and requires clarification of chain of command priorities. Sentences that sounded neutral and meant something very specific to anyone who understood how the system worked. For years, I was good enough that it didn't matter. The work spoke. You don't ground a shooter with those numbers over paperwork politics when there's operational need. The slightest pause. But 14 months ago, the one person above Decker who understood my value retired, and Decker finally had a clear line. He suspended your program. He suspended my everything, said with finality, and then waited for me to give up. She looked at Calloway directly, no deflection. I am not here for Raymond Decker, she said. I am not here to settle 30 years of bureaucratic score. I am here because there is a mission and I am the asset for it. But you asked, and you needed the full picture before he walks through that door. Because he is going to say something about my psychological fitness, or my age, or my injury history, and I needed you to understand where that comes from before you decide whether to believe it. The intercom crackled. Reeves again, tighter than before. Commander Calloway, I'm showing Colonel Decker en route to your position with Facility Master access. ETA 4 minutes. 4 minutes. Calloway looked at Elena. Elena looked at the Barrett. And Calloway's brain, trained and tested and reliable, did the thing it did when variables were multiplying faster than comfortable. Imposing order. Running facts. The facts were a woman with a classified operational file and a confirmed record he couldn't explain was sitting in a restricted room with a rifle she had serviced herself after her authorized support had been stripped away by a superior officer with a documented conflict of interest going back 30 years. The facts were she was calm. The facts were he wasn't, which was interesting, which was exactly the kind of interesting that made him want to sit very still and think very carefully. The mission, he said. Who authorized it? The authorization exists in a channel above Colonel Decker's access level. She reached into the interior pocket of her jacket, removed an envelope, plain, white, his name on the front in handwriting he didn't recognize. I was told to give you this if you asked that question. He took it, opened it. Single sheet, official letterhead, a signature he recognized not from personal contact, but from 2 briefings in his career that had required flying to Washington. Rooms where the air was heavier with the weight of decisions that didn't get written down in accessible places. 7 lines. Formal authorization language. Elena M. Voss cleared for mission preparation at Dam Neck facility under SAP directive. Standard logistics chain bypassed. Cooperation requested from facility personnel at commander level and above. And at the bottom, one handwritten in line. She has never once been wrong about a target commander. Trust her judgment. H. He stared at that line for a long moment. H. He knew who H was. Everyone in his world knew who H was, the way everyone knows the name of a particular mountain. Not because they have climbed it, but because it is simply always there, enormous, impermanent, and structuring everything around it. He folded the letter, put it in his breast pocket. Okay, he said, just that, one word, and she nodded, once. The nod of a person who has been waiting for exactly that syllable for 14 months. The door opened 2 minutes and 40 seconds later, not with drama, not with urgency, with the flat proprietary certainty of a man who has access to every room in the building and has never had reason to doubt that access would be granted. Colonel Raymond Decker was 57 years old and looked at the way buildings look, their age structurally sound, well-maintained, bearing the particular weight of everything that had happened inside them. Broad shoulders, silver at the temples, uniform pressed to the edge of geometry, His face a professional instrument. It communicated what he chose to communicate and nothing else. He looked at Calloway first, then at Elena, and Calloway, watching very carefully, saw it. A fraction of a second, a compression around the eyes, a micro-tightening of the jaw. Not surprised, something older and more complicated, the expression a person makes when the thing they have been managing, containing, gradually making smaller, shows up fully assembled and looks them directly in the eye. Gone in an instant, replaced by the instrument face. Commander Calloway, level, unhurried. I wasn't informed there was a contractor in this space. The contractor is completing authorized mission preparation, Calloway said. Authorized. Decker's eyes moved to the Barrett on the mat, to the open cleaning kit, to the loop at the edge of the workbench, back to Elena's face. Ms. Voss's program access was suspended 14 months ago. She has no current authorization to be in this room or to handle restricted. Colonel, Calloway removed the letter from his breast pocket, held it out. I think you'll want to read this before you finish that sentence. Decker took the letter, read it. His face did not change, which told Calloway more than a reaction would have, because genuine surprise makes the face do things people can't control, and Decker's face did nothing, which meant he was working, calculating, rapidly running through what this meant for his position. He folded the letter, held it. This authorization goes through a channel that bypasses standard security review. Yes, Calloway said, that's irregular. The letter explains the basis. A pause. Decker looked at Elena. And here was the thing Calloway clocked and filed. Decker didn't look at Elena the way a commanding officer looks at an unauthorized civilian. He looked at her the way a man looks at something he has tried very hard for a very long time to put somewhere it can't look back at him. Miss Voss, his voice conversational, like they were discussing a scheduling conflict. Your operational fitness was assessed as compromised. That assessment stands regardless of, I have the letter, Colonel. Elena's voice was quieter than his. Somehow that made it louder. You can contest it through proper channels. I believe the Inspector General's office is on the 4th floor of the main building. She looked at him without blinking. I know the room number if that would help. Something moved across Decker's face. Fast. Gone. This isn't over, he said. No, Elena agreed. It isn't. But the rifle is. She gestured toward the Barrett. And that's what matters today. Decker turned to leave, 2 steps toward the door. Colonel, Calloway said. Decker stopped. The maintenance suspension on this weapon, 9 months without a service cycle on active deployment inventory. Calloway kept his voice entirely professional, entirely neutral. I'll need to understand the authorization chain for that decision before I can close out this inventory check. For my report. A long pause. We can discuss that through proper channels, Decker said. Of course, Calloway said. I'll schedule it. Decker left. The door closed. Calloway walked to the door and engaged the lock himself. He'll escalate, Calloway said. Yes. How far? Far enough that it becomes someone else's problem after the mission is complete. She picked up the rifle, checked the balance, set it back down. He's been managing this for 30 years. But the letter changes his options. He'll move carefully now. The people in that building in Mogadishu, he said it quietly. Were any of them, they were alive, said with a finality that meant that is the part that matters. The part that doesn't change, and I would do it again. Kowalski Bonhomme, he said. Retired, lives in Lafayette, has 4 grandchildren. The faintest thing, not quite a smile, but the face doing something warm and private for just a moment. He sent me a card when his first grandchild was born. Didn't say much, just because of you. Calloway sat back on his stool. He needed a moment. 30 years. 30 years of a woman who had made the right call, the demonstrably, provably 11 people are alive right, now correct call, and had been paying administrative installments on that decision ever since, doing the work through channels being systematically dismantled around her, servicing her own rifle, at 6:47 in the morning, alone, because the mission existed whether she was officially on it or not. The USB drive, Calloway said. Elena reached into the kit bag, produced a small black drive, set it on the mat beside the Barrett. 3 names, she said. 3 other specialists managed out of active programs by Decker or people connected to Decker over the past 12 years. All 3 with similar profiles. High operational value. Documented instances of decisions that conflicted with orders they believed to be ethically compromised. She looked at the drive. One of them, you know. Calloway looked at the drive. Didn't touch it yet. Daniel Hargrove, Elena said. And there it was. The name Calloway had heard in corridors. in the particular register that military people use for names that carry history. Daniel Hargrove, who had pulled 8 men out of a burning vehicle ambush outside Ramadi in 2006, whose Silver Star citation had quietly recalibrated Calloway's conception of what courage looked like in practice, who had been quietly removed from his program 2 years after Ramadi for reasons no one had ever explained clearly. He worked a joint operation with one of Decker's assigned teams in 2007, Elena said. He saw something he shouldn't have seen. Reported it through proper channels. A pause. The report was routed to Decker's office. Calloway closed his eyes for exactly 1 second, opened them. How many people does Decker have running cover? Fewer than he used to. People retire. Loyalty has limits. She looked at Calloway steadily. That's partly why 14 months ago was possible. But his network is thinner now, more reactive, more likely to make mistakes. Calloway picked up the USB drive, turned it over in his fingers. If I take this, he said, I want to know that the people on it have the option of a proper review. Not retaliation, an actual review by someone with the access and the integrity to do it correctly. Elena looked at him for a long moment, taking the precise weight of something. The person who wrote the letter, she said finally. H. He retired 6 months ago, but he still has friends in the right buildings. Would he? He already offered. A pause. I told him I wanted to wait until the mission was done, so there was no appearance of leverage, so it was completely clean. Calloway sat with that, with the image of a woman who had been managing this situation, not just the mission, not just the maintenance, but the whole 30-year architecture of it, with a precision and patience that made the rifle work look simple by comparison. You've been planning this for a while, he said. I've been patient for a while, she said. That's different. He put the USB drive in his pocket, stood up, walked to the terminal, opened the facility incident log, typed 4 lines, inventory verification of restricted precision, fires equipment completed, equipment found in full operational compliance, no discrepancies noted, signed with his access credentials, closed the window, turned around. Elena was watching him, not with gratitude, with something quieter, the recognition of a person who has operated without institutional support for a very long time, watching someone choose voluntarily to become institutional support. The mission debrief, Calloway said. When it's done, I want to be in the room. That's not standard. I know it's not standard. I'm asking anyway. A long pause. I'll see what I can do, she said. Not yes, but not no. And from Elena Voss at this particular moment, not no felt like something solid enough to stand on. She lifted the Barrett from the mat, checked the balance, both hands, 3 points of contact, the rifle resting across her palms like she was offering it. She rotated it 45 degrees, checked scope alignment by eye, set the butt against her shoulder. Her stance shifted. The left hip, the accommodation, the slight forward lean she'd been carrying so long it had become posture. And then she settled, and something in her stillness changed quality, not more still, but differently, still the difference between a pond with no wind and a pond that has forgotten what wind is. And Calloway understood watching her that what he was seeing was not a woman holding a rifle. What he was seeing was a system reaching equilibrium. 30 years of adaptation and endurance, and quiet, persistent refusal to be made smaller than she was, all of it converging into this room, this morning, this moment of stillness that was not the absence of everything she'd been through, but the product of it. He thought about what it would mean to aim at a target 2,960 meters away. At that distance, light bends. Temperature gradients deflect the bullet's path. Wind at the point of firing tells you almost nothing about wind at the point of impact. The Earth's rotation introduces drift that must be calculated and corrected for. At 2,960 meters, you are not shooting at the target. You are shooting at a point in space and time where the target will be when the bullet arrives. He thought about doing that at 62 years old with a piece of metal in your knee that had been there since 1989. She lowered the rifle, began breaking it down for transport. One question, Calloway said. 1. The shot, 2,960 meters. Is that the distance for this mission? She looked at him, something behind her eyes that was almost amusement. Commander, she said, you don't have the clearance for that answer. She placed the disassembled Barrett into its carry case with the same care she'd shown every component from the first moment he'd seen her. Each piece in its place, each latch secured, each clasp seated with a quiet, definitive click. She picked up the case. The left hip dropped fractionally under the weight. She adjusted, compensated, straightened. and walked to the door of room 14C as if she had every right in the world to be there, which Calloway had decided she did. The hallway outside room 14C was empty, which meant nothing. Decker had walked out of that room with a folded letter and a controlled expression and the bearing of a man who had not conceded anything, who had simply relocated. Tactical retreat. Pause before the next move. Calloway made 2 calls. The first, his administrative clerk, a formal scheduling notice for a maintenance chain review, meeting Decker himself. Facility logistics. 3 days from now. Routine language. Nothing aggressive. Just a commander doing commander paperwork. The second call was to Lieutenant Commander Sarah Merritt, legal officer. 15 years in JAG before she crossed to operational support. The kind of person who exists in every well-functioning institution as a structural, load-bearing wall that nobody thinks about until the building starts to shift. Merritt, she answered on the second ring. It's Calloway. I need a hypothetical conversation. How hypothetical? The kind that might stop being hypothetical in about 36 hours. My office, 30 minutes. The meeting with Merritt lasted 90 minutes. He laid out the structural elements without names or operational specifics. A specialist administratively suspended by a superior with a documented conflict of interest. A pattern of similar suspensions. A USB drive with supporting documentation. Merritt listened without interrupting. When he finished, she was quiet. If the letter is legitimate and the SAP authorization is genuine, the suspension was not just irregular. It was conducted in bad faith against an active authorized asset. That's my read. That potentially rises to obstruction of authorized military operations, which is a very different category. The IG's office, Calloway said, sooner rather than later. After the window closes, for reasons I can't specify. She looked at him for a long moment. After the window closes, she agreed. The window closed at 9:15 the next morning. His secondary monitor carried the headline with the careful neutrality anchors used when reading something significant they don't yet fully understand. A high-value target, a financier connected to coordinated attacks on American diplomatic personnel in 3 countries. Eliminated during a coalition special operations action. Location undisclosed, method undisclosed, circumstances undisclosed. No coalition forces had suffered casualties. The diplomatic personnel who had been the planned targets were safe. That was the whole story. 47 words of public record. 47 words containing invisibly everything: the pre-dawn position, the atmospheric calculation, the particular quality of stillness that could hold a crosshair steady at a distance most people couldn't see clearly with binoculars, the 30 years of showing up, the piece of Panama in the left knee, the 11 people in Mogadishu who went home in October 1993 because a woman had looked through a scope and made a 4-minute decision that cost her more than any anchor reading 47 words would ever know. Calloway turned off the monitor and felt something he hadn't expected. Not relief, not satisfaction, something closer to grief. The clean, specific grief of understanding the full shape of something unjust. Of seeing how long it had been happening and how little had been visible and how much had been carried quietly and without complaint by one person who had decided that the work mattered more than the recognition. He opened his terminal, navigated to the classified system, opened Elena Voss's file, and began to type. Not an incident report, not a maintenance notation. The first formal internal record in 30 years that put Elena Voss's name in the context of what she had actually done. He documented the SAP authorization, the letter, the mission outcome, the pattern of administrative interference he had personally witnessed, his recommendation for immediate review of the suspension order and restoration of full operational status pending Inspector General investigation of the authorizing officer. He signed it, his name, his rank, his badge number, saved it, then called Merritt. The window's closed, he said. I'll make a call tonight, she said. He hung up, looked at the file. Voss Elena M. recommended status under review for reinstatement. Not active, not yet, but not suspended anymore either. Something in between. Something that meant we see you. The record is going to reflect what actually happened. It was not enough. He knew it wasn't enough. 30 years of not enough could not be fixed by one commander at one terminal on one afternoon in Virginia. But it was a start, and starts mattered, because nothing that had ever been fixed had been fixed without one. The knock on his office door came at 17:20. Specialist Dana Reeves stepped inside. Civilian clothes, end of her shift. She looked like a person who had spent the last 22 hours making a decision and had finally finished making it. There is a specific exhaustion that comes not from physical work, but from the work of figuring out who you are when the situation stops being hypothetical. She looked like that. Specialist Reeves. Commander. She stood straight, shoulders back. I need to speak with someone from the Inspector General's office. About what specifically? About the maintenance suspension order on the M107 assigned to contractor Voss. A breath. Steady. And about two other incidents I witnessed directly involving Colonel Decker's administrative decisions over the past 18 months. She reached into her bag, produced a manila folder, placed it on the edge of his desk. I made copies of everything I could access legally. A pause. I've been thinking about doing this for a while. I just wasn't sure what I was seeing was what I thought I was seeing. And now I'm sure. She met his eyes. I watched Colonel Decker read that authorization letter this morning. I watched his face. A beat. A man who is doing something wrong reacts differently to being caught than a man who has always believed what he's doing is fine. Decker reacted like a man who has always believed what he's doing is fine. Calloway thought about the micro-expression he'd clocked that morning, the compression around the eyes, the managed blankness. That's an important distinction, he said. Yes, sir. She looked at the folder. I think it needed to be on the record. The IG inquiry opened 10 days later. Decker's scheduled appearances at 2 routine briefings were attended by his deputy. His calendar cleared for what was officially described as an administrative review, the kind of clearing that is not a vacation. Calloway did his work, attended his meetings, ran his team, handled the 17 things that required handling on any given day in a facility that never fully stopped moving. He did not hear from Elena Voss. He had not expected to. She was not the kind of person who checked in, who sent updates, who required confirmation that the people she'd interacted with were still thinking about her. She did her work and she moved. That was the whole architecture of her life. Do the work, move, come back when the work needs doing again. Alone, quiet, carrying everything in the interior where no one could see it and no one could administratively suspend it. He thought about that, about what that kind of life cost, about the card from Kowalski with "because of you" written inside, about the fact that 2 words from a kid from Baton Rouge might be the closest thing to official recognition she had received in 30 years, about how that was wrong, straightforwardly, completely, without nuance or complication. Wrong. 3 weeks after the morning in room 14C, his terminal displayed a file update notification. He opened it. Voss, Elena M. Operational status active. Suspension order vacated 8th AVOG Review Board. Administrative finding suspension order issued in bad faith, contrary to operational requirements and proper authority. Recommended action, full reinstatement of program access and support infrastructure. He read it twice, sat back, looked at the ceiling. Active. 1 word, 6 letters, 30 years. His desk phone rang, unknown number. He answered, silence for a moment. Then Commander Calloway. Her voice, the same measured cadence, the same quality of stillness, like she spoke the way she held a firing position, conserving everything that didn't need to be used, committing fully to what did. Ms. Voss, he said, I understand the file has been updated. It has. A pause. Reeves, she said, not a question. Reeves, he confirmed, a longer pause. She's going to need a good commander, Elena said. Someone who notices when people do the right thing and makes sure it doesn't cost them more than it should. I'll keep that in mind. A beat. The mission debrief, she said. You asked to be in the room. I did. It's scheduled for next Thursday. There will be people in that room whose clearances are considerably higher than yours. A pause. You've been added to the list. He said, thank you. She said, don't thank me. Thank the letter. I'll thank the letter. The faintest suggestion of something. Not quite a laugh, but adjacent to one. Then her voice settled, became the careful, precise instrument of a person delivering a final thing. Commander, a breath. What you did in that room. Locking the door, covering the time, standing between Decker and a decision he was trying to make. A pause. That mattered. I want you to know that it mattered. He was quiet for a moment. Because some things said by the right person at the right time require a moment to be received correctly. I know, he said. Just I know. Quiet, conversational. And she recognized it. He could tell she recognized it. The echo of her own words from the first moment in room 14C, when she had refused to stop what she was doing and acknowledged without apology or explanation that she knew exactly what she was doing and was doing it anyway. The faintest pause. Good, she said. The line went quiet. He sat at his desk for a long time after that, not thinking about anything in particular, just present. The way operational people learn to be present when the immediate crisis has passed and the body and mind catch up to where they are. The Virginia coast outside his window, the pewter sky, the Atlantic in the distance, gray-green and moving. He thought about 44 years of showing up, about Mogadishu in October 1993 and a 4-minute decision made in the dark, about 11 people who went home, about Kowalski in Lafayette with his 4 grandchildren who would never know that they existed partially because a woman had looked through a scope and decided that what she saw mattered more than what she'd been told. About the word active in a file that had said suspended for 14 months and closed in practical terms for 30 years. About the specific, quiet heroism of people who do not perform their heroism, who do not announce it or seek recognition for it or require the institutional structure to acknowledge it before they continue, who just keep showing up. He opened his desk drawer, took out the letter, unfolded it, read it one more time. She has never once been wrong about a target commander. Trust her judgment. He folded it carefully, precisely, each crease exact, each edge aligned, every component in its proper place. Put it back in the drawer, closed it, stood up, walked to the door of his office where the ordinary business of a facility that never fully stopped moving was waiting briefings and administrative requirements in the daily accumulation of work that mostly went unrecognized and mostly needed doing anyway. He put his hand on the door handle, stopped, turned back, looked at the terminal one last time. Vos Elenum M. Operational status active. He nodded, once, to no one, to the room, to the record, to 30 years of a woman who had never needed his nod or anyone else's to keep doing what she was doing, but who had earned it, completely and without question. Then he opened the door and went back to work. In a weapons storage room 3/4 away, on a shelf in a climate-controlled vault designed for equipment requiring absolute precision, maintenance a Barrett M1 070 A1 sat in its carry case. Locked. Clean. Every component within tolerance. The latches seated and secured with the small definitive click of a thing done correctly. Clipped to the inventory tag a plain maintenance log. Yeah. Service completed. Full operational compliance confirmed. Barrel bolt group trigger assembly scope, mounting all within specification. No discrepancies noted. No name, no signature. Because the person who had done the work did not need her name on a log to know the work was done. The work was done because the work needed doing, and she had done it. And somewhere in a direction and at a distance that no unclassified document would ever specify the people who had come home because of it were home. And somewhere in Louisiana in a house with grandchildren and the smell of food that a young man from Baton Rouge had talked about every night for 6 weeks in 1993, a man named Kowalski was having dinner with his family. Because of you. 2 words. That was the whole of it. That was enough. Outside, the Virginia evening was settling over the coast. The pewter sky darkening toward navy. The Atlantic moving. The facility lights coming on one by one across the perimeter, that particular institutional yellow that looks the same in every military building in every corner of the country and means simply, we are still here. We are still doing the work. The night comes and we continue. Somewhere in the distance, a door opened and then closed, and the hallway was empty, and the work went on.